Conversations with Elders, hosted by yours truly, Louis-Virie Blanche, welcoming you to Glastonbury Radio 432, where we will be TED Talking in tongues with the elders of all ages, all generations, all races, cultures, and creeds. All gender, religious, or political preferences will be honored and encouraged on Glastonbury Radio 432, Conversations with Elders, where it is our treasured pleasure to roll out the red carpet of golden liquid love light to you in honor of the queendom come, soul dancing free to life's heartbeat drum, in honor of mother, daughter, sister, lover, priestess, goddess, friend, sharing the blessings of love's perfect stranger, Deja Vu, welcoming you to Glastonbury Radio 432.
It's too cosmic, much too cosmic for me. Much too cosmic.
And we are here once again on Conversations with Elders with our beloved friend and brother, Dr. Mohsen. And we say, Phi aloha, Phi aloha, Phi ola, Phi aho, Phi hello.
Yes.
And thank you again, my brother, for taking the time to speak with us. And we have some visuals today, and we are going to work our way into discussing the eye of the heart, the eye of the mind, and the eye of the soul. But there were certain foundational concepts that you wanted to speak about.
You know what happens, the first slide I would like to show you is basically, it's this slide here. It says dietary intake.
Yes.
And dietary is not just food, it's also emotion. Because we acquire our emotions, we acquire our mentality and thinking and all that. So whatever goes in our existence has to have these attributes. Number one, it has to be assimilative. That it means be able to go into your cell. If it's accumulative, it won't be able to go in your cell, so it doesn't really benefits the cellular functions. So that means, we have to have cellular availability of the food. And you have to have emotional availability. That means, it has to be assimilative to your mind, to your heart, to the cells, because each cell has its own mind and heart too. So that's why everything has to be assimilative.
Not accumulative, but assimilative.
Yes, that's why let's say food, which is the last lower hierarchy of intake. If it's the size of the food is bigger than the size of the cellular holes in the cell that things has to go in and out by electrolytes, then it can go in. So it stays out between the cells and it becomes cellular swamps. And that's why people exercise and eat light food and everything. And if they don't have electrolytes, the food is not assimilative. Either there is no voltage there, or the size of the molecule of the food is too big to go in.
So if a person is overweight, they've really accumulated a lot of weight, but they've never assimilated it.
Yes. So the food has to be assimilative. It has to have ability to go in. In order to go in, it has to be the right size, cellular gates, cell gates. And then you have to have electrolytes to take these food in and bring the toxin out. So if this process does not happen, the food or nutrients becomes accumulative. Now, if it's emotion, then that accumulation becomes trauma. And all of a sudden I have a subconscious full of trauma.
You're carrying around a lot of emotional baggage.
My bag is big as possible. Yeah.
No one wants to date you because they say, wow, that guy, that man, that woman has a lot of emotional baggage. I'm not sure I can handle all of it.
Yeah. Because the emotion that she acquired or he acquired was not assimilative.
Right.
We have emotional molecules as well as we have physical molecules. So we have molecules of mentality, we have molecules of emotion, molecules of soul. So if it's not assimilative, it becomes accumulative.
Okay. And now we have alkaline and acidic, the difference in those two.
Yeah. I think previously we showed in the last sessions, alkalinity means, ability to produce electricity. That's why we had a chart when the body of each organism has a functional pH. That means at that pH, they are healthy. And just like airplanes, they go at different level. Each organism has a different functional pH. Human is about 7.4. And most of the organisms, they're all between 6.6 to 4.5. For example, cancer is about 4.5. Cold is about 6.6. But only human and dogs are outside that range. Dogs are at 2.5. Human is about 7.4. That's why when somebody all along the history, every culture, every language, if somebody is very sick, that means they're very acidic. They say he is sick as a dog. Because pH, functional pH of dog is very low. And if I am that low, that means I'm very sick. Like I show you in the chart. Or they say when somebody is in that level of pH, which is real low, their toxin is a lot and nothing is getting assimilated. So it becomes cellular swamp. So when they exhale, they have a bad breath. That's why all along the history, all along every culture, everything, when somebody has a bad breath, they say, hey, oh, he has a dog breath.
So what is it about the dog that Creator gave it this low pH value?
Well, he blessed every animal with a different pH. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dogs, but it just, let's say cold has a pH of 6.6 and cancer has a pH of 4.5 and diabetes has or tuberculosis has a pH of 5.5. So every organism, everything in creation was created with a different pH. That's why health becomes host theory, not germ theory. It is not the strength of the germ that causes a disease, but rather the resistance of the host that induces the symptom. So it's the host theory that I'm hosting. If my pH is at 6.6, I'm hosting colds. So if the cold virus comes in me, it's a perfect pH for it to multiply. It's the best environment for it because they function at 6.6. All of a sudden I have symptom of cold. If I have a pH of my body's at pH of 5.5, tuberculosis comes in, it's a perfect host for that virus to multiply. So I have tuberculosis, or 4.5 for cancer. That's why cancer patients are very acidic.
And we spoke before, there's a tendency for the state of emotion of most people that have cancer has been stressed.
Yeah, because what happens, we have physical pH, then we have emotional pH, and we have the mental pH. I could be a perfect physical pH of 7.4, but if you are emotionally, I'm very acidic, I'm jealous, I'm hateful, this and that, all the negative emotion. That overrides my physical pH. That's why stress is a killer.
So the physical pH, the emotional pH, and which was the other?
Mental.
The mental.
Yeah, so my emotional pH, let's say I am perfect pH of 7.4. All of a sudden, I host in me a sense of negative emotion. All of a sudden, I get jealous toward you. Or I get greedy, okay? That brings my emotional pH down, negative emotions. And when it brings it down, no matter how physically I was alkaline, that negative acidic emotional pH overrides the physical.
And so your field and flow is not really sustaining an electromagnetic function.
Yeah, that's why there's a molecules of emotion. There's physical molecules. Also, we have molecules of emotion and molecules of mentality.
Where would the the carbon-60 molecule fit in that scheme of things?
Well, because carbon-60, he changed it toward the end of his life because what happens, all his assumption was based on circle. That's why, if you remember, I mentioned he went to his daughter's first grade class, and some little kid, made a comment, and all of a sudden he changed his whole life after he was 72. And he said, every time I draw a circle, I immediately step out of it. That's his thing. Yeah. And then he get into a spiral because this spiral has to be open. Otherwise, it won't fractulate. The circle is being stuck and prisoners of inside the box. That's why nothing is in circle in the creation. Everything is in the spiral because it can move. If it was in the circle, it keeps repeating it. So,
a lot of people have a lot of rethinking to do when it comes to being, what are these convenient, what do we call them? Convenient delusions or convenient?
Yeah, it's a conventional illusions, because
But
because there
all
are
that convenient is not necessarily in harmony with our homeostasis.
Yeah. See, there's a few things that it doesn't take much science to really recognize it. Anybody can do it. There is certain things, nothing in universe goes in circle. So circle is a toxicity. And there is nothing as positive and negative because everything, if there was positive and negative duality, it would cancel each other. There wouldn't be any fractulation. Everything is a spiral in polarity, male and female.
And the electromagnetic field and flow of, for instance, now if we move to the alkaline and the difference between alkalinity and acidic, the alkalinity is assisting us in maintaining an electromagnetic field and flow.
I think we have that chart here. Let me see if I can bring it up so you can see it. So you see here, if you look at the level of pH on the left side here,
yes,
and the level of voltage, TMP means transmembrane potential. It's the walls of the cell. That means voltage across the walls of the cell. So you notice when it's 7.4, I have 70 millivolts of electricity for osmotic osmosis function. Now, when it drops to 70 millivolts, it's almost, it's pH of 7, then it drops to 6 millivolts, 60 millivolts. Now, all diseases, since they are between 6.6 and 4.5 on the left column, you notice they're associated with 50 millivolts and 35 millivolts. So that's why there is not enough voltage for osmosis. When it's a cancer, which is at 4.5, the body is 1,000 times on the left-hand column. And then when it's 4.5, it's a cancerous environment field. And then that's associated to 35 millivolts. That means the voltage across the cell is almost 1/2 in a cancer patient. So all of a sudden, the cell, instead of being in osmosis, get oxygen, water, nutrients, and all that, it goes to mutation. It has no energy. That's why all of a sudden it's a cancerous cell. If it's 6.6, it's a cold. We are hosting the cold. So Avicenna established the host theory, not germ theory. Germ theory is from Pasteur. Host theory says all functions, first of all, are magnetic and electrical, and it's not the strength of the germ, but rather the resistance of the host that induces or evokes the acquirement of a disease. It has nothing to do with germ. It's not, we can't blame the germ. Point the finger on the germ. Because when I point one finger at the germ, I'm pointing four fingers toward myself, which I'm hosting it.
Yes.
So that's why the host theory was taught in all medical schools until Pasteur. But Pasteur, when he came since germ theory, all of a sudden, instead of being a host, that you are not hosting the germs, all of a sudden, I got into a germ theory. I am in the process of killing the germs. Now, killing other living things has emotional association to that. Because every one of those living things have rights to be here, just like me and you. And here, I'm massacring, holocausting them. Instead of correcting the host.
If we are nice to the plant and we ask, may I pick this lemon now? And that lemon is fresh. We know that you can, remember we spoke about the copper and the zinc. The
Yes.
light bulb will light up from a fresh lemon because it's flowing with negative ions.
Yeah, I have that. Let me just bring it here so we get fresh memory. Yeah, see what happens, if it has everything when it's functional. Function is defined as something has magnetic and electrical attributes, because magnetism induces electricity, electricity induces magnetism. It's an open system, open function. So that's why if this lemon is live that has magnetic and electrical attribute, it turns the light bulb on.
Now, have people actually taken a fresh lemon off a tree compared to a lemon that's been on a shelf for 3 weeks?
My grandson is 3 years old about 2 weeks ago. I gave her one of these toys. So maybe somehow get across. His was a clock, because if the lemon or something is fresh, or tomato, when you put the clock start ticking. But if it's not, it's the light bulb doesn't go or the clock doesn't tick. So if it's not turning a little LED light, what makes you think it's going to turn on your cells? The cell doesn't have any magnetic or electrical attributes.
So in our shopping, should not the food have the pH value listed there so people can know what they're buying?
Well, what happens, there is certain things that's called missing link in our diets. Like, for example, a systemic enzyme. Systemic enzyme is the garbage man of the body. It takes all the garbage out. Now, MSM, which is the third largest ingredient in all living things. Now, within about 7-8 hours, systemic enzyme goes out of, as soon as you de-electrify, it goes away. Within about a day or less or more, the MSM attribute is gone. So all of a sudden, all these attributes goes away, and within about a day or two, if you put this wires into it and connect it to an LED or a small clock, it won't tick. So if it's not ticking the clock, what makes you think it's going to tick me? So that's why back in 1978, 79, I developed a new concept. It's called solagritecture, solar agriculture architecture in architectural design. That means, every home has to have a small garden, a small greenhouse to produce their own food, to have electricity, because there is no way for the farmer, me, to produce the food and then move it, with the truck to some kind of storage, and from there, to a grocery store. By the time, it takes about a week.
And by the time it gets to a person's table for eating, it's really not alive.
And I had advertised about it. It's non-GMO and it's organic. So you buy it. But it doesn't have magnetic or electrical attributes. So That means, people have to get into concept of, I don't know, I may have that slide here. Just 1 second. Let me see if that clarifies this issue. If not, I have, oh, here it is. You see, in order to have health, magnetic sustainability. Sustainability in terms of health is availability of magnetism in what we put in our body. That means it has magnetic attributes. So usually our shelter is provided by architecture. Now, we get into, there's another slide here that I have. The architecture has to be paramagnetic, work of Dr. Philip Callahan. It has to be able, the envelope of your house, to allow magnetism to come in, so my body receives it. If I use diamagnetic materials such as like what is it, granite and all that, it can. I use metals in the building, it can. That's why I put zeros in the slide. There was a slide here. Like these things have to be zero in architecture for me to receive in my building magnetic field. Now my food comes through agriculture. Now so these are my two most immediate necessity to survive. I have to have a roof and I have to have something in my belly. Yeah. So if we coin these
optional.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not optional, it's necessary, So if you fuse architecture and agriculture together, it becomes agritecture.
Agritecture.
Yeah. And if you give it a sustainable source, solar or magnetism, to it, it becomes solagritecture. So in order for people to have health-wise sustainable, they have to have solagritecture as a living environment in order your body receives magnetism, in order the food that I eat have magnetism. That's what means, if you have, most of the houses that I have designed, they all have 1,000 to 1,200 or more greenhouses. So they produce their food. I did this under a DOE grant for the farmers in Utah back in the early 80s. And so the food that you are eating, you just de-electrifying it a few hours before you put it on your table. So it has electrical attributes. If you put those two wires across, the light bulb goes on or the clock starts ticking. But for me as a farmer, to bring any fruits or vegetable, non-GMO, organic, all those attributes that I advertise to you, it takes me a week. And by then there is no electrical attributes. There is no MSM, there is no systemic enzyme. And there's a bunch of other, missing link in the diet, it's another set of 400 or 500 slides that I have, we can discuss that some other time, but the missing link is there is no other way until, we change our cultural paradigm, how we are housing and agriculture and food. So that's why my doctorate thesis back in mid-70s was solagritecture, how to produce sustainability which has the attributes of survival. Now culture, centurions, they live with this kind of lifestyle. So their food has attributes.
And since everything in creation is magnetic,
all functions, every function is magnetic. That's why we call it immotation. Now, you fall in love with somebody else falls in love with you. It's the act of immotation. That immotation is of magnetic nature.
And that we have this physical magnetism, an emotional, and a mental.
Oh, yeah. And cellular, not cellular.
Cellular, yes.
Friends call each other, friends call friends on cellular phone, not cellular phone.
I'll be sending smoke signals from my heart. Please read the sky.
Well, that's why you say, notice, they say heart to heart, somebody's halfway around the world, you still have, your love doesn't diminishes. But if I send something with the electrical emission, after, let's say, 7-8 miles, it dies off. It doesn't reach the other side. When your emotion reaches halfway around, it has nothing to do with distance and time.
Yes. So outside of time and beyond any spatial limitations.
Yeah.
Let's return to the first chart we started with and go to that that next level, because we had the accumulative, alkaline, and acidic, and the other two.
Yeah, I'll get back to that. But I see, this is like 30 some years ago. I used to teach my kids how to do magnetic farming. You see, I put just 70, 80 pounds of potato here instead of 7, 8 pounds here. So that's why it's Phi-Q magnetic farming, university, and solar agriculture. These are cultural paradigm shift that we have to take if we want to live in synchronicity. And we'll talk about synchronicity in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah,
we spoke earlier, some time ago, we spoke about longevity being 7 times maturity.
Yes, in every organism. Like, for example, you see dogs, they mature at 2, and they live 14. Horses at 3, 21.
Humans put at 19, and we could be living to be 133.
Yeah, so you see, most of the centurions that they live with this concept of solar architecture. Their food has magnetic and electrical attributes. Since it has electrical attributes, they're 100 years old, and they don't go to menopause. And 100, 120 years old man in Hansa is still shoveling. He's not sitting on his couch and watching TV.
Exercising his thumbs with the remote control.
Yeah, that's right. The muscle comes here, yeah, and becomes calluses.
Okay, and we keeping in mind that humans develop systems, but nature and creation has function.
Yeah. Function, see, system is based on input and output, because that's what's developed by man. Functions were created by God. It's field and flow. Can I create a cosmetic field? No, I can facilitate it, but creation of that has come from somebody way beyond my power.
So it's the facilitation of, not the imitation of.
Yeah, you become the whole concept of things that we have talked about. If you're in surrender, submission, and service, in peace, not with agony or with anger or anything like that, in peace, you enjoy it when you are surrender, submission, and service to creator and creation in peace, because that gives you peace.
And that peace actually creates a field around the human being.
Yeah. Because when you get into that state of surrender, submission, and service in peace, willingly, you put 1 grain of corn in the ground, nature so much cooperates with you, all of a sudden gives you 700 pieces of corn. You put 1 wheat, nature, and you facilitate, you give a little water, something like that, and all of a sudden it gives you 70 pieces of wheat. So where can you get input to output in that ratio? In system, efficiency is always way less than 1. Sufficiency is always way more than 1.
And for systems, they require energy. Functions are in tune with synergy.
Yes.
And applying these concepts in every aspect of our lives is key to us being mentally healthy, emotionally, and physically healthy.
Yeah. Because when you are in the service, surrender, submission, and service in peace, willingly, with joy, you start synchronicity, resonance with nature, and that calms you down. Take all your worries away. All of our stresses is from that systemic life. It's not rather than functional life. That's why in the third component of here, it has to be regulatory function. The regulation of function in the universe is like this. Regulation of function of this plant is like this, like a wheat or a corn. Now, if I come and stimulate that, everything has an autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system means in plants, human, animals, it means conducting the function as it was created, not as it was distorted or corrupted. So if I come and stimulate it, make it faster, make it slower, I can't get up because I don't have energy, I'm so acidic. I took a cup of coffee. It perks me up. And then all of a sudden everything becomes a stimulatory. There's nothing regulatory anymore. And then I can't go to sleep. I take some pills, I take this drug, I take that drug to put me to sleep, and I take a drug to wake me up. So that means my total autonomic nervous system has to go to sympathetic and parasympathetic function. All of a sudden it's totally written up.
And the way the system is designed is that the parasympathetic slows down.
And sympathetic, yeah.
And it does that in a synergetic, by synergetic understanding of the function. There's an inherent synergetic understanding in observing the functions of nature.
Because autonomic nervous system is managing where you need energy and when you need to slow down, where you need to go higher. Mm-hmm. That's why when you eat after the meal, every digestive system, it goes into sympathetic. And the rest of the body goes parasympathetic. That's why the old ancient, or maybe some cultures still after meal, they take a siesta.
Yeah, many cultures like in, Europe and Mexico, I mean, they take a 2 or 3 hour, all the shops closed, everybody's taking a siesta.
Otherwise you mess up your autonomic nervous system. And all of a sudden, when autonomic nervous system doesn't work, all of a sudden people get leaky gut syndrome. When I get leaky gut syndrome, it turns into emotional, psychological bipolar. I become narcissistic because 85% of my immune system is on my gut. And here my gut is going crazy. It leaks everything, There's no probiotic or prebiotic in it. So that's why the third components of dietary intake, whether if it's emotional, mental, or physical, it has to be with respect, surrender, submission, and service to regulatory function of the body. My regulatory function is different than, let's say, a cow or a horse. They have a different regulatory function. Every organism, based on their pH, they have a different regulatory function. When they get into a stimulatory, you have to pump a lot of adrenal.
So the maintaining of a assimilative alkalinity and regulatory intake in our mind, emotion, and body will eventually lead to the eye of the mind, the eye of the soul, and the eye of the heart.
Yeah. These are the things that eye of the soul and eye of the mind has to observe in the nature. In order for me in peace become surrender, submission, and service. Otherwise, I may surrender, submission, and service with anger and not willingly, but I should be enjoying those three acts. So when the eye of the mind can see that, eye of the heart can see that, you willingly, you enjoy that process of surrender, submission, and service. You enjoy your service.
Sometimes when I stub my toe, I try to enjoy stubbing my toe.
Yeah.
I accept the fact that I must have been meant to hit my toe, and I'm not going to get that upset about it. I'm just going to let it pass, let it be.
Yeah. See, that's why what happens, is when we get into madness. Or sometimes, when we want to stimulate something, we make things faster, something is slower. So we override autonomic nervous system. The analogy is like you're trying to push a river.
Right, you don't push the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite songwriters, Van Morrison, he has a song called "You Don't
Oh
Push
yeah,
the River."
yeah.
Yeah. So when our field and flow, the electromagnetic functions of our mind, body, and spirit are functioning, we resonate and something happens. We synchronize with source, with the
Yeah.
with creator, and we can receive inspiration and things flow, like just what you need comes to you out of being in
Yeah.
harmony with this synergetic function of life, right?
If you're working on your surrender, submission, and service in peace and with joy, you work for your passion. And with the passion, it comes vision, inspiration, imagination, and action. And you do it willingly.
And you
So what
start to
happens now?
magnetize to yourself those things that
Yeah.
further enhance.
Then it becomes your work becomes your emotion. It becomes your love. If you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Ah, beautiful. If you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah. But you're busy 18 hours a day, and you're doing it with joy. You can't wait until you wake up. You don't need a pill to wake you up. You don't need coffee to wake you up. And that's what the chart, I'll show you what coffee does, when it overrides a regulatory function. Because if you love what you're doing, it's imagination, vision, passion, and action. It comes very joyfully in peace.
So it's almost as if we're becoming this magnetic field and flow that spirals into the rest of existence in such a beautiful way that we feel more peace the more we live in that state of beingness.
Yes, let's say if I'm joyfully surrender, submission, and service in peace to a wheat, that wheat gets in the state of fractillation. It becomes 70. It fractalates. A corn becomes 700. A watermelon, you put a little seed, all of a sudden you get a bunch of watermelon full of seeds. If it doesn't have seeds, don't eat it. Because it hasn't fractalated. That's why you don't eat seedless fruits.
So who came up with the seedless watermelon?
GMO. Yeah, and GMO stands, for what? You know what it stands for?
I don't remember now.
Genetic modified organism, right?
Right, genetic modified organism.
But
yes.
no, it doesn't say that. GMO means God move over.
God move over. I know better.
God move out.
God move out.
Because I know better.
Yes.
So anyway, so these are the three. We can sometimes get back to this. I mean, each one of these, it's a whole weekend of workshop. Regulatory function, stimulatory, what's regulatory, and all that stuff. Regulatory. But in order, when we observe that, there is another function here, which is called resonance.
Mm-hmm.
When things are resonant, they have resonance with each other. That means they are emoted to each other. What is emoted? We need emotion. Magnetism. Magnetism is inducer, precursor to emotation.
Magnetism is, again, say that please.
Precursor, or the field for the act of emotation.
The field for the act of emotation.
Yeah. Like emotation, like the verb for emotion.
Right.
Now, when you are in active immotation, then there is a byproduct which is called resonance. If you're now you resonate with somebody that you may be similarity. So similarity causes resonation. Purity and clarity, it increases a resonation. You resonate with somebody who's pure and somebody who's trying to weasel you into something. Yeah. And then, centropy, that means somebody who's coming along with you that increases your order of things. Centropy, ever increasing order. Synchronicity, you're synced, with the nature. You're synced with your beloved. And you have alignment. So all of these, it increases resonance. Intention, somebody has intention, you resonate better that somebody's intention is bad. Somebody who is dilating, that means coming to you with open arms and a fist. You resonate with that better than with somebody with open arms or somebody with clenched fist. Yeah?
Pick one you like best.
And then there's two more. It increases our resonance. That means you are forgiving. You have ability to forgive others and forgive yourself. And then the most important of all, repentance. Then you're restarting with God. That means you extend your repentance to Him. He's starting over because I did something wrong. So if I have those ability in me, then I can resonate with you better, or you resonate with me better. If I don't have any of these things, I don't have clarity, I don't have purity, I don't have similarity in terms of mental similarity, right? I don't have synergy, I don't have any of those. I mean, we can't even be in the same room together.
And this becomes something that we often hear the word sacred with resonance.
Yes. And this resonance is what? Is active vibration. If I have these attributes in me, I may not even say a thing in the word, but if I'm in a room with you without even saying one word, you feel comfortable. If I don't have this, my vibration is so bad, even if I don't do anything or say anything, you don't feel comfortable in that room with me. And I haven't said anything, I haven't done anything, it's just my vibration. Because science has shown that 58% of all communication is by vibration. 35% is by what? My tone. And only 7% is by my words. So if I have a good vibration, all of a sudden, 90% of my communication is vibrational.
So when we are in this state of mind with our emotion and our body in tune with this resonance, we are really like emanating Wi-Fi.
Yes.
And we can just set our cell phones aside and say, who needs those things?
Yeah. Cell phone is WIFI, but we can have a paradigm shift. Say WYHPHI, Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. I like that one. I like
So
that one.
that's a paradigm shift from this Wi-Fi to this Wi-Fi. Otherwise, we're going to go Pi.
And Creator gave us a GPS system.
Yes.
Because if we listen to our silent thoughts, our intuition serves us as a guide. It's like a guiding light. It's a silent voice. We may not be able to see it, but we sense it.
Yes. You have intuition. You have a gut feeling. Sometimes you've noticed that you said, I feel it in my stomach. I have a gut feeling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in the process of understanding how to sustain and maintain this level of resonance, we immediately start growing into being whole, magnetically functioning beings in harmony with the existence that we were born to be a part of.
Well, we were born for unification,
Born for unification.
not segregation and separation and fragmentation. We were born, we were created to fractalate with each other, not fragment each other. Narcissism is a fragmentation. If I'm narcissist, I'm fragmenting the hell out of you. You know? And then make, because all of a sudden that's my intention. See the intention here?
Now we spoke of process, procedure, and practice.
Yeah.
The maintenance of these functional processes, we've observed it's being the procedures that nature and creation seems to utilize the most. And
it's a simple question. Do you want to use my process or you want to use the created process? My process, sometimes 2 years later, I come and find that it's something wrong with it. Scientists after scientists, when they don't, like Louis-Virie was very good, there are scientists, they follow this paradigm. But how many scientists that 10 years, 20 years, sometimes during their lifetime or past their lifetime, somebody else, proves that their process was not good. Now, the two good example of that is Einstein and Tesla.
What examples pertaining to Einstein can you share with us?
Well, what happens, Einstein, assumption of the speed of light was based on oscillatory movement. Light and everything in creation is moves in vibratory vortex, not oscillatory. So I cannot come and say the speed of light is this and give it by frequency. Everything in creation has a pulse. When it's rotation, is pulse, measured by pulse. You don't have frequency in your heart, you have a pulse. Two different things. And then Tesla was the father of oscillatory environment. That's why one of the biggest pollution we have. The Einstein theory of E is equal to MC squared has been, so many scientists have written books about it, including one in University of California in Santa Cruz. I forgot his name, the physics department. The fallacy of Einstein theories, because the fact of nuclear is fragmentation of a molecule. That's why the byproduct is so bad. They say, for 500 years, they have to restore it. Half-life of it is 500 years. So that means, we committed a very act of treason against the nature.
Now, the process of re-evaluating things that we believe to be true. It seems like in this time in human evolution, there's a lot of opportunities for us to take a look at what we think makes sense and what really makes sense. Like Bucky used to say, do you want to make CENTS or SENSE?
Yeah, you see what happens is, if my eye is synchronized, like I mentioned synchronicity here and alignment, the eyes of the nature, then I'm in tune. I'm in resonance with nature. So therefore, it comes to an issue, it comes into empirical empirical EMPIR, that means by observation. Experimental is by laboratory. Now, when I try to experiment something, I cannot do all variables. I have to experiment with limited variables, sometimes one or two. But when it's empirical, all variables have been taken into account in the nature. There is no variable limited.
Well, how does a education system, a human system, get so out of harmony with Creator to the point where it has really no choice but to reconsider and rethink? And
Because if you look at, most of our educational system is based on duality and Newtonian paradigm. Action, reaction, not field and flow or polarity.
so in the pre-kindergarten, when children are playing with toys, like there's some structures that have struts and the rubber connections, and like you can take a large dodecahedron and you can turn it into a tetrahedron by diminishing its size, and you expand it. Those
Did I tell you this? What is it?
I think they were called tensegrity toys. Tensegrity toys.
Yeah. I would. That's why I have deviated from geometry, because geometry and mathematics. Because mathematics is the dialect of fragmentation. There's so many things. If I express it mathematically, you will laugh at me. If I say I have 5.6 trees in my front yard,
Right.
I have fragmented an expression. And geometry is based on circle, which is non-existential reality. There is no motion in the circle, because if the circle, you give it the three universal motion, all of a sudden, first of all, the sphere or circle becomes a spheroid, right? The two tops go down, barely comes out. And if you give it a rotation with the sun and earth, all of a sudden it becomes egg-foid. That means it's one side of it is a little elongated, it becomes egg-shaped. So there is no such a thing. If there is no such things as geometry. Everything is phiometrical. That's why I developed the science of phiometry, because if I take those three motions, rotation, vortation, and peristalsis away from every planet, then I have a sphere. And from a sphere, I can get circle. So that's non-existential, because everything has those three motions. So it's a non-existential assumption.
Bucky's work, he often said that humans never innovate until there's an emergent need.
Yeah.
Have we reached that point where the clock is about to strike 12, or is it about?
If you look at, let's say, environment, a stress level, that is, since everything is based on circle and entropy, there's a few things we have to give up in life. One is circle. Two is entropy. Two is energy, and then duality. So these three things, energy, duality, and circle. These are toxicity of mental state. Now, because energy induces what? Entropy. Every scientist knows that. That means ever increasing chaos. Now, if the chaos in my emotion, chaos in my stress, chaos in my mentality, chaos in everything, in the environment, pollution has never gone down, it keeps going up. Because all of our system is energetic, not synergetic. Duality is causing more segregation and fragmentation than ever before. And then we are thinking circular. So we are going in a circle.
Are we chasing our tails?
So that's why circular mentality is a little toxicity. That's why I separated from geometry and mathematics. I had a very good background in geometry and mathematics. I still have saved all my stuff from high school. I did geometry, mathematics, and I advanced in a very, very high. But then I realized I cannot connect it. There's no resonance of this and that, which is the nature. And if I try to connect them together, it's not in peace. I have to force it and then tweak it, whistle it, or limit the variables. In nature, you don't have to limit any variables. In my experiments, if I have to do it in lab, I can only have 1 or 2 variables.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to still press all other variables. And that doesn't make sense.
Well, the process of making sense, S-E-N-S-E, has more wealth and value than making C-E-N-T-S.
Yeah.
Because we talked before, you've said before that people that are so, how do you say it? They're so rich.
Well, I know people so, it goes like this. It goes, I know people so poor that all they have is money. Nothing else.
All right, my brother. Until the next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it for here and now. But until we meet again, this has been Louis-Virie Blanche thanking you for listening to Conversations with Elders on Glastonbury Radio 432. Bless you.
Quantum physics in the kitchen sink, the energy that follows the thoughts you think. Quantum physics and the cosmic sea, laws of nature too heavy for me. It's too cosmic, much too cosmic for me.